make stuff. Just go make stuff. Just if you've got a story to tell, I know you do. We all do. So just make stuff.
You're listening to The Other 50%, a herstory of Hollywood. I'm Julie Harris Walker. This is the podcast where I talk to successful women in entertainment and hear their stories. This episode is brought to you by the entertainment payroll company Extreme Reach. They are committed to becoming the most inclusive and diverse payroll company in the business, and you know I love that. It is my jam. Also, they have the most comprehensive suite of tools and services to support all areas of media and content creation, from tax incentive support to accounting software and payroll services. If you are making film and television, you should call them and tell them I sent you. And for commercials, they offer talent negotiations and editing, content delivery, and residuals. Now for this episode, I sat down with Layne Marie Williams. She is a director and filmmaker in Chicago, founder and executive director of Women of the Now, which is a media and production company, and the co-founder and director of development of the Women's Film Festival in Philadelphia. And she's not yet 30. This woman makes things happen. You can find us at theother50%.com for added features, photos, show notes, and the merchandise. You can also listen on Apple Podcasts and all the podcast places. And the Other 50% podcast network is growing. We are soon to launch a new podcast called The Kiss My Age Show, which is where women of a certain vintage, grown-ups, talk about anything and everything, all the things that matter. And then, if you want to talk politics and culture, go listen to Exit 38. It is a show where two people who seem to be opposites from a political perspective discuss the issues of the day while trying to find common ground, which they do. Emily Van Dyne and Sean Patrick Hughes are both really smart and thoughtful and kind. You're going to like them. You can also find Exit 38 on Apple Podcasts and all the podcast places. Just go spend a few minutes on Apple Podcasts and subscribe to some stuff. All right, here's my conversation with Layne Marie. We connected through Zencastr. Have a listen.
Okay, so I'm excited to hear about everything that you're doing. So why don't you tell me, how do you describe yourself? What do you do?
I am a director and filmmaker located in Chicago, Illinois currently, and I am the founder and executive director of Women of the Now, a media and production company located here in Chicago, and I am also the co-founder and director of development of the Women's Film Festival in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
I love all of that. I was looking at your stuff earlier, and I was wondering, do you consider yourself an activist?
I do.
And was there a point where you became that, or were you kind of always that way?
I think I always have been that way. Growing up in Montgomery, Alabama, I mean, it's just right in your face all the time. There's just clearly like a right or wrong in a lot of things. And I just kind of grew up with like a very empathetic, fighting heart. And so it just kind of like carried into my adulthood in a very organic way.
I love it. So let's go back to, how did you get into this business in the first place?
Well, I made movies when I was a teenager. So when I was, 12 to 14 years old, I ran around with my mom's camcorder, much to her horror. And made movies in a closet with my best friend at the time. And we took Barbie dolls and fashioned them to mirror our lives, but we got to reinvent, the stories that we were living every day. So we got to make fun of our bullies and our teachers and ourselves and create these really eccentric sets based around it all. But, at the time, it didn't occur to me that this was something I could pursue. Not at all.
As a career?
As a career, no, definitely not.
Do you still have any of those Barbie movies?
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh, yeah. My mom, a couple of years ago, had them converted into DVDs.
Uh-huh.
And so I need to go back and really sit down and watch them all. I did take a look at one, I think last year, 2 years ago. And the one that I watched, I had taken a teacher in school who shall remain nameless. We built a whole laboratory around her because she was our science teacher. And it was just the goriest little thing that two 12-year-olds could have dreamed up. But I like saw that and just laughed to myself and was like, wow, like clearly this like fascination with fantasy and like horror and, you know, maybe like a little bit of sci-fi, you know, all that's just, it's been here this whole time.
I love it. I would love to see the YouTube channel dedicated to those films.
Oh man. But yeah, so it kind of started that way. And
okay, so then what happened?
Yeah, so I outgrew all that. I became too cool to play with Barbies in a closet. And then I fell into theater and started doing theater religiously and performing and painting and writing and just anything artistic that I could do, I started doing. And I did speech and debate, like really hardcore when I was in high school. I like qualified for nationals all 4 years. Like it was like a huge part of my life. And so naturally I was just like, okay, like I'm going to go to acting school. Like that's what I want to do. And again, you know, I was like in Montgomery, Alabama. So it was just like a little bit unheard of. But I was really lucky because my teachers, who were predominantly male, really believed in me. Like they really, really believed in me and challenged me and questioned me and pushed me and mentored me. And I auditioned for University of the Arts and got a scholarship and went.
That's
and
great.
You know, did theater, was a classical actress. And then when I graduated early from college in 2013, December of 2013, I had all this time on my hands because I was like one of 7 people that graduated early. So I just picked up a camera again, completely by accident, and just started making movies.
Now, UArts is in Philly, right?
Yes.
So did you stay in Philly?
I stayed in Philly for a year and a half after I graduated. So I stayed long enough to make the Women's Film Festival, see it through for 1 year, and then I left.
Okay, what made you want to create that festival?
Well, once I graduated from college, like I said, you know, I had all this time on my hands and I was doing theater, but I don't know. I mean, I was going through like a really traumatic breakup at the time. And I had a Canon PowerShot because I've like always been obsessed with like taking photos and like, you know, filming things. And that's just always been a part of my life. Again, I just never considered that it could be, you know, a part of my career.
Right.
And so one day I just like hit record and showed it to my best friend, Campbell O'Hare, who's an actress that lives in Philadelphia. And I showed her the footage and I said, I don't know if this is like worth anything, but take a look. And then the next thing I know, she's editing it. And so then we turned it into a little film and like grew the storyline and grew the character. And I screened it. My good friend Brandy Burgess was working as a teaching artist in DeKalb, Illinois, and gave me the opportunity to come show the film. And then after that, I was just obsessed. I was like, oh my gosh, like I've got to keep this going. And so I met the other co-founder of the Women's Film Festival, Phuong Nguyen, totally at random. We exchanged business cards. And then the next thing I knew, we were sitting at lunch together like, wow, there's, you know, where should I screen my little film next? And we realized that there was no Women's Film Festival in Philadelphia. And so we were like, you know, we should just do that. We should just make a Women's Film Festival. So we did.
Okay, so first of all, just like that, you became a filmmaker. And then how did you even begin to figure out how to put on a film festival?
You know, so much of it was just instinctual. It was really like, I remember going and having sushi with Campbell O'Hare, you know, in the midst of building this thing. I would come and meet her after a day of meetings with like local potential sponsors. And like, you know, I was like sitting at the table with Comcast all of a sudden, like trying to convince them. Yeah, I was like 23 years old, showing up at Comcast, like, hey, here's my idea. Like, you guys should get behind it. You know, and I remember like going and meeting her for sushi and being like, so I guess I'm a businesswoman now? Like, what? Like, I don't know how this happened or what it means, but this is a thing. So, yeah, I mean, I just, you know, trial and error. I don't know. You know, maybe we could attribute some of it to being from the South. Like I know how to throw a party. So much of like this industry is like you're just throwing party after party after party, you know?
Yeah. That's great. So that first year, how did it go?
It was great. It was great. It was super fun. It happened at the Ethical Society in Rittenhouse, which was like a big dream of mine. I tend to like decide I want to do something and then I fixate until it happens. And so like I knew that like I wanted to do this in Rittenhouse the first year. And there was an interdisciplinary element to the first year in particular, which was really cool. You know, now that I've moved away, the festival has like really blossomed into its own thing. And the women that run it, it really is like their child now. I'm definitely still involved, but I really, you know, mostly just work as like a consultant and, you know, the person that helped found it. But yeah, I mean, it was wonderful. And we showed the next film that I made because, you know, I just kept making work after that. Cause like I said, I became totally obsessed. Mm-hmm. So we screened that. And that was so, I mean, there's just, the thing is like, as a filmmaker, the best education you can get is from watching your work in front of a live audience. And so that was.
Talk a little bit more about that. What do you get out of that?
Well, I mean, that I feel like that was why I started the film festival, because I needed to keep seeing the things that I was making in front of an audience, because that's when you get to see your work like up on a big screen. You get to see the moments that translate, the moments that don't translate. Like maybe you could have tried something different with the edit here, or you should, you know, like I could have directed this actor to try that line, you know, a different way, or, you know, it's just, I mean, that's where you see it all fully formulated and like come together in front of people. Because at the end of the day, we're, you know, for me at least, like I'm not making work to just like sit. Like I'm for it to just ultimately sit there. Like I'm making work to hopefully influence people and change people and make them question themselves and society and the way that we like move about our lives or think about a character that they otherwise might not have thought about before. And so I think like for young filmmakers in particular, it's so important for us to provide a platform where they can see their work.
Yes. I love that you really use that to study your craft.
Yeah.
And then at some point you moved to Chicago. What precipitated that?
So I was thinking about going to New York. That was my initial plan. And I spent a lot of time going back and forth between Philadelphia and New York, especially like my senior year of college. And that I was going to do that. And then I don't know. I woke up one day and like sat in a chair in my apartment and was like, what about Chicago? And then I, again, just became fixated and then just figured it out. I'd heard positive things from the very few people I knew here at the time. And in particular about filmmakers.
Did you know anybody?
I knew a woman named Grace McPhillips who unfortunately moved pretty much like right after I got here. But she's doing wonderful things with her life. Her and her husband have a tiny house and they're incredible. But she did like intro me to the industry here a little bit. She like put me in a film with her and I like met a bunch of great crew members that way. But I knew her, and then I knew one other woman named Hannah Copen, who actually starred in my first film that I made while living here, Dollface.
And then at what point did you start Women of the Now?
So Women of the Now existed in the midst of the Women's Film Festival, but only as an idea and only as like a phrase. So it was coined by the folks that I was working with during the Women's Film Festival. We would call ourselves Women of the Now.
And what did you mean by that?
Well, at the time we were making this documentary about sexual assault. And that was what screened at year one of the Women's Film Festival, called The Stonebirds. And one of the actors who was interviewed talked about like his sister and like his like internal fears about his sister, like growing up in this world. And he actually said Women of the Now in his interview. And so from there, it just stuck. It just completely stuck. And when I came to Chicago, I brought the idea with me. And so the film that I made when I first got here, Dollface, was under the umbrella of Women of the Now. But it took some time, for it to become something other than just a cool sounding phrase. You know, I had to like meet the right women in Chicago to help put this thing up on its feet with me, to believe in it just as much as I do. And it's been really crazy and amazing to see how much it's grown in so short amount of time. We had our 1-year anniversary this past March.
Oh, congratulations.
So, yeah, thank you.
Now, what is the mission?
So, like I said, we are a media and production company. So we elevate women filmmakers here. So we do educational opportunities and workshops. We do networking events, and we also make our own content.
And are you also doing branded content?
Yeah. So the commercial world is definitely something we're striving to step into more as well. So we've made, you know, we partnered up with Curiosity Productions recently, and I directed a commercial spec for them for the Cara Go Run Association. And then we've also done something for healthcare.gov. But yeah, branded content is something that we're definitely stepping into more. But we've made a lot of short films. We just produced our first feature, Rendezvous in Chicago. And we also do music videos.
That's great. Now, it's a little bit preaching to the choir, but why is it important to you to elevate the women's voices and the women's product?
Well, I think that, you know, we are the biggest consumers there are here. And, you know, our voices matter, and we're listening, and we're present and incredibly powerful and have a lot to offer. And I think that the talent is there. It always has been there. It's just a matter of providing, you know, opportunity. You know, like this first feature that we made, I've assistant directed before, but I haven't assistant directed a feature film. And I also was like the sole producer for it. And then Women of the Now, again, the film is going to exist under its umbrella. And so I was able to bring in crew members from Women of the Now. And so I feel like that's a perfect example of, yeah, this feature film could have been made by, you know, maybe primarily male filmmakers. But because the writer-director approached me, I was able to provide opportunities for women to come on as associate producer or as script supervisor or as hair and makeup, or, you know, to work as production manager. And those are all roles that we got to fill. So, and people got paid, you know, to do that. So I think the jobs and the opportunities and the platforms, they just need to be built upon because the talent and the voices are there.
Yes. Now, what do you make of kind of what happened over the last couple of years with women? Like kind of the state of the union with women, if we can put it that way. What do you make of it?
In regards to,
I think like politically in the country, and then Me Too and Time's Up and everything, that it feels like it just exploded in the last 2 years.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like very long overdue. You know, I think it's very long overdue. And I can't even imagine what the women that came before me must have put up with, you know, had to have put up with and experienced and had to just like live in silence. You know, like when I think about like my grandmothers or my ancestors or aunts or, you know, anything like that. I mean, it definitely, I think it runs really deep for all of us because it's just been going on for eons. So the fact that we have enough, you know, I mean, the internet, as much as I love and hate it, it has opened up a lot of doors for women to be heard and hopefully to start being believed. And because it's just, you know, there's like a domino effect, right? So it's like, you know, the more that we keep speaking up and like putting a stop to this kind of behavior that's unacceptable, absolutely unacceptable, you know, hopefully it will resonate and people will start to realize that you can't get away with treating somebody poorly. Like, just don't do it. And I feel like, you know, a lot of men in this world have just gotten away with it because there has never been any repercussions.
What do you think it was that it feels like everyone put their foot down on the same day and said, we're done accepting this behavior? What do you think happened?
It's kind of hard to say because I'm not, I'm very much like in the indie world side of things. So anything that I like observe like from Hollywood is always like it's from many, many miles away. Or so it feels, maybe that will change over time, but that's how it feels right now. So it's hard to directly say, especially because there's just so many articles out there and so many different people pointing the finger. But I really think that, the Harvey Weinstein incident, when women started really speaking up about that and like owning what happened and like, not letting him continue to treat women the way that he was. Because that's part of the problem too, right? Is it's like, once somebody does something like that, if they aren't
held accountable.
Yeah. If they aren't held accountable, what's stopping them from doing it again?
Right. Because then they have evidence that it's just fine.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I feel like that was the catalyst. And I think, Trump coming into presidency and I mean, there's definitely like, I think if we looked at a timeline, we would see like a pretty clear route that led to sort of a little, what feels like not the ultimate, but, some destruction of the patriarchy in a way, which I'm thrilled about.
What would you like it to look like in the future?
Well, as much as I love my company and I love the Women's Film Festival, I mean, I think in a utopia world, like there would be no need.
Right.
There wouldn't need to be a Women of the Now. There wouldn't need to be the Women's Film Festival. Maybe that's like a very idyllic like thing to say, but idealistic rather. But yeah, I mean, I hope that we're not challenged the way that we are now and that we can just be seen as filmmakers and we can just be seen as artists and whole, like fully formed people.
Yeah, I think the goal is a post-equality world where you don't have to be an activist. You can just be a human and be equally represented and included.
Yeah.
Have you felt obstacles as a female filmmaker? And what did that feel like?
Oh, I get asked this question a lot, actually. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, definitely. I mean, there's been various challenges along the way. I mean, every single day there's something, and I've only been in this industry for, let's see, I'd have to think about it, but like 5 years now, I believe. And so, it's definitely been, it's definitely like changed who I am and molded like me as an artist and a person and the way that I move through the world. I mean, I could give examples of specific stuff that I've been through, but I'd say like, the biggest thing has been just proving over and over and over again that you're here and you're ready to work. And that's the thing that I've had to combat the most is just like, but who doesn't deal with that, right? So yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of showing up, doing the work, and not letting anybody else's opinion of you or, whether they want to see you succeed or not letting that get in the way. And that's the biggest challenge I feel like I've faced.
Is that having to prove it over and over again?
Yeah, especially I think starting out as an actor and then, I mean, I was a model at the start of my career and then I, ended up, and then I was also an actor at the same time. And so, I kind of went into this industry, as we talked about, like really by accident. And so there are certain things that I've had to play catch up on because I didn't go to film school and because I'm not from the Midwest and I haven't been here as long as a lot of the other filmmakers. And so, yeah, I've definitely had to prove myself a lot to the community here in order to like feel like I've earned a spot.
What's your ultimate hope and aspiration for your career?
Well, I think I'm going to move to Atlanta probably by 2020 at the latest. And, it's hard for me to think super duper long term because I have ideas about like what, my long term goals are. But they just feel like a little bit less out of reach. So right now I know like I'm going to get Women of the Now to a place where hopefully, it can really survive on its own. And, we were able to pull out like 10 projects a year. We also do a lot of event production, and, I'm continuing to work on my portfolio as a director. And I know at some point, like I'll leave Chicago and I'll go to Atlanta. I think, that could change. Maybe I'll go somewhere else. I'm not sure. I just know that I will go somewhere else at some point. And I love Chicago, but I'm from the South. Like I got to go back to my roots a little bit, but I also will go wherever the work takes me. So we'll see. But yeah, I see myself going there and hopefully, landing a television series where I can delve more specifically into episodic directorial work. Mm-hmm. And then I also want to be on the roster of a commercial production company so that I can, continue to direct commercials. And then also, I'm already working on, what my first feature is going to be. So yeah, so I would say those are my short-term / kind of long-term goals. I just want to like make really good work that like resonates with people, give back to the community in a really specific way, and be happy,
And be happy.
That's one thing.
That's what we're all going for. Are you writing as well?
I am. My next short film called Scutley, which Women of the Now will be shooting this July. I wrote, and then when it comes to my future like feature films, because once I make Scutley, I'm gonna kind of like step away from short films, mm-hmm. my own short films. That is, if somebody like hires me on as a director to make their upcoming short, like of course I'll do it if I believe in the project. But but for me, I've made over 10 short films at this point in my career, like on my own time. And I know that I've got to like level up after Scutley and start making feature work and really focusing on episodics, and then also, commercial as well.
Well, that's a great portfolio as a calling card to have 10 already.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's really good. What advice do you have for young women who are just starting out?
Make stuff. Just go make stuff. Just if you've got a story to tell, I know you do. We all do. So just make stuff. Make it on your phone. Get a friend that has a really good camera. Pull in a couple of actors that are excited to make stuff for their reel, and just shoot some stuff, edit it, and then show it to people. That's the way, I think.
That's how you do it. It's the Nike advice everyone gives. Just do it.
Right. Just be active about it.
How are you finding the network and the sisterhood in the business?
Well, I think it's always been there. I've been really lucky to have been surrounded by extremely supportive women that also challenge me since forever, and it's been wonderful, especially to meet women who have similar goals and missions, and who, I can throw up an idea and then the next thing I know, they've made it 20 times better, so that to me is the ultimate sisterhood, is that I can kind of just like word vomit some ideas. And then I've got 3 women there to be like, yes, and what if we do this? Or how about this? Or if we do it this way, then this could happen. And that makes me feel like very cared for in this business, for sure.
Yeah. Have you had a mentor?
I've had a couple of mentors along the way. Yeah. I've had a couple along the way. I don't necessarily have one single person I can point to at this point in my life. Sometimes I'll get hit with like, oh man, if I just wish that I had this like female filmmaker who was, more seasoned in their career that could like put their arm around me and take care of me and show me the way. I definitely feel that desire sometimes, because that I do not have. And maybe that's part of why I've done the things that I've done, because like I've never really had that. I also grew up with a bunch of boys. Mm-hmm. But women are something like really special to me in my life. I've always surrounded myself with lots of women. But yeah, they come and they go, because they're busy people and they've got work and family. But yeah, I think I've had a lot of mentors along the way, but not necessarily a single person that I can point to at this point in my life.
I think that's how it happens a lot. People come in for whatever season or time or whatever you might need. Now, are you mentoring other people?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I use the word mentor. Like, I feel like a little bit odd, like thinking of myself that way, just because I'm 27. So I'm like, who do I think I am?
Well, there's some 18-year-old that thinks you are the shit.
Totally, totally. But yeah, I would say so. I love working with youth. It's something that I feel really passionately about. And that's one reason why, I've always been interested in like educational programming and like really building up young filmmakers. And, Women of the Now does like camera workshops with Doff and Bach. And we've got an acting workshop that we have coming up August 11th with Camera Ambassador that I'm pumped for. So, anybody that's passionate and excited, like that approaches me, especially if they're ballsy enough to like get my business card and follow up with me, like that really like speaks volumes, just because I've been that girl, I've been that girl a million times and I'll continue to be that girl. So
just showing up is so important.
It is.
Now, what have I not asked you that I should have asked you?
I don't know. I just started thinking about my family when you said that for some reason. And I don't know that that's something that we even should talk about, but they were what came to mind when you asked.
All right. Tell me about your family.
Well, my big brother is an actor. He lives in New York, and my little brother is an aspiring lawyer, and he lives in Birmingham, Alabama. And then my dad is a lawyer. And then my mom has been a housewife as long as I can remember, but she's a retired registered nurse. And I mean, they're my lifeblood, and they also drive me crazy, whose family doesn't, right?
Would you say you come from a family of activists?
I would say that they are gems of the ocean for sure, because I wouldn't be who I am if they weren't as open-minded as they are. They are still Southern and like stuck in their ways in some capacity, and like, I mean, I think the reason I thought of them too when you asked that is because I was just in the South 2 weeks ago visiting my parents, and I got to spend a little time with my little brother. But it's just a totally different world, it's been very strange to have decided to move away from all of that. Like when I went to college, I mean, me leaving Alabama was, that was a big deal.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anybody in Philadelphia, I mean, I really didn't know anybody in Philadelphia. Just, I just knew that was something that I had to do. And I felt the same way when I came to Chicago, and I'll feel the same way when I leave Chicago. But yeah, they're special people. And, my parents in particular they're like on the verge of getting a divorce right now. And so that's been this like really, really tricky thing to navigate while still trying to grow into myself as like a young woman and as an artist and a filmmaker and having 2 different startup companies. It's definitely been one of the wrenches in life for sure.
Well, and it's got to be weird to navigate as an adult.
Yeah. They say like when it first happened last year, when they split up, they say that adult children going through the divorce is about as bad as it can be. And I think that there's some truth to that, because it's like you reflect on everything in your childhood and you're like, right. But what was real,
I can only imagine what was real and what was not what you thought it was.
Yeah. It makes you question everything. And, and this situation as it's been, I mean, it's, and I think I'll be able to talk about it more freely, like in the future, like when I'm a little bit older and, and it's all said and done. But yeah, I mean, it's been one of the most painful things to navigate, because I just, you just never think, you think that it will never happen to you. It's one of those things where it's like, oh no, like not my parents.
Well, and once you've grown up, you figure, well, now they've been married 30 years, so why would they?
Exactly. And of course there's 2 very different perspectives on the situation. Like hearing my mom's side, hearing my dad's side.
Oh, right. And you're probably old enough that they're both going to tell you. Whereas when your kids are little, you try not to talk about it. And then custody is mandated. So the time you spent with each parent is laid out very clearly. But as an adult, you have none of those kind of constructs in place.
Right. And I'm very, very far away also, and so I feel very distant from it sometimes, and I feel guilty about not being there, but I also have had to set boundaries for sure. And I've been protected from some information that it's like, okay, but like also I don't know what's going on. So if you don't tell me what's going on, I'm just going to assume, like, I'm going to think that you're the bad guy in this. So like, I don't need to know what your perspective on mom is, but I need to know like what your plans are, and because again, like my parents are originally from the Deep South themselves. The Southern lifestyle is not really, people do not lead with truth. You know what I mean? And I don't say that with any hatred. It's just like people don't lead with truth. Like they wear masks in the South. Like everything is pretty and gentle and facade driven. And that's something as I've grown older and like, went to acting school and had that beat out of me that I've had to like acknowledge.
Yeah. I got to say, you're going to be able to make an amazing movie about this at some point.
Well, that's the plan.
No, I can hear it. I can see it already. Now,
yeah.
What do the people in Alabama think of what you're doing?
I need them to pay more attention to what I'm doing, I think. Yeah, I feel like I haven't gotten in their face enough.
Is it just so outside the scope of what they think people do? Like, could they even get their head around it?
Well, I think that they could. And I think that they would be supportive. And like from what I've seen, like I feel like they have been. But what I need to do, and it's like on my list of like, Layne Marie's going to fixate and then make it so, is, there are theaters like the Capri Theater in particular in my hometown. I need to just make them screen my work. Mm-hmm. Like I ought to just do like a Layne Marie Williams like night of films or something and like pay whatever it is they want me to pay and then just like open it to the public and like have people come see my work. But that's a whole thing. That's a whole thing. But my first feature is going to be set in my hometown. And I've got 2 different ideas and I'll probably write both scripts. But yeah, one of them is absolutely gonna deal with a lot of these themes.
Yeah. Are you going to go shoot it there?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I'm excited to watch them.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting.
Yeah. For sure.
I was just thinking that the cultural differences between Alabama and Philly and Chicago, and to really have a deep understanding of what they are, especially in this time when the country is so like divided and not listening to each other. I got to imagine that that's such a unique perspective that you could probably explain a lot of things to a lot of people from your story and your experience.
Yeah, I think so. I think, for a long time I resented where I was from. And then as I've gotten older and like moved and traveled a lot, I've gotten to a place where I think that it's the most special thing about me, actually. And I think it's a real asset when it comes to how I communicate with people, the kind of work that I'm able to make, and the questions that I ask when I walk into a room. So yeah, I'm really excited to uncover a lot of that for the public to see.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting. Now, did you used to have more of an accent? Did that get beaten out of you in acting training?
It sure did.
That's how they do.
Oh my God, you have no idea.
Like I can hear, little glimpses of it around the edges.
Yeah. Yeah, I always tell people when they ask me that, I say the times where you can really hear it are when I'm drunk, angry, or passionate.
Or I've just hung up the phone with your mom.
Yep, exactly. Or talking about the South, it'll come out. But yeah, the acting training that I went through, I owe Darcy Webb my life, but she really, really went in on me. But it was so good. I mean, she would stand me in front of mirrors in front of my whole class, and we would spend, the whole class where I would try to say the word now and instead of now. And it was brutal, man. It was absolutely brutal.
I did the opposite. I was in acting training in New York, and I walked around the streets like trying to acquire a New York accent. Wow. I'd be walking down the street going, corner, laundry, quarter, coffee. I was trying so hard to get it. Like I could just
oh, you just wanted to fit in.
I did. Yeah? I wanted to be a New Yorker so bad.
I understand that.
Okay, I was going to ask you what's next for you, but I think you're thinking about moving to Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the immediate next for me, so Rendezvous in Chicago, the feature that I just worked on, it is like already fully edited. I'm like going and seeing the first formal rough cut of it tomorrow.
Where are we going to see that?
So it's going to run the film festival circuit for a while. And then, but we're already starting to think about like online distribution as well.
What's that about?
Rendezvous in Chicago is about love in the city of Chicago. And it features like 3 different main plots and 3 different couples. And so it has like the beginning, middle, and end of a relationship. And it's really about transitions too. But I'm really excited about it. I saw some of the footage one day after we shot, because that's how fast the turnaround for this is going to be, which is also insane. Mm-hmm. And it looks so great. Like I'm really excited.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so we're doing that. And then, I've got another short film of mine that's in post-production right now that will hopefully be running the circuit soon. And then, we're going into production for Scutley, and I've got a couple of like commercial little gigs that I've got coming up. And Women of the Now has a bar event a summer bar event that's happening on this coming Saturday. And we're gearing up for our next little mini film festival and other events that we're going to be doing. So yeah, I mean, just keeping busy and like doing that entrepreneur life here in Chicago, making some travel docs on the side with Matador Networks. And then, yeah, I mean, Atlanta, I've got my eyes on, but I'm also trying not to think about too much because I'm here and I'm here now.
Right. And once you focus, you set things in motion. So you got to be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking yesterday when I was walking home. So my new goal is I'm like determined to work on Stranger Things, which is, I don't know if you know anything about it, but it's a TV show and they shoot it in Atlanta.
Yeah, the Netflix series, right?
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, and so I'm like obsessed now with trying to get on that show. I'm like, I will pour coffee. I will direct traffic. I do not care. I will do anything. How do I get on the show? So, but I was thinking about yesterday and I was like, maybe I should start just like looking into that. Like maybe I need to just start figuring that out. And then, I start like Googling things and then I'm like, wait, hold on though. Like, what if I do make this happen? And then it takes me away from Chicago. Like I can't go yet.
Yeah. Be careful. I think Atlanta just became where the most production is happening.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of really awesome stuff happening there, but I do need to go visit and just kind of like start building those relationships. Probably like this coming fall. I just need to get to a place where I've like kind of worked through all these like really big, heavy projects. And then, I can kind of like start to look into the future a little bit more.
Yeah. All right. Exciting. Where can people find you?
You can find me on Facebook, Layne Marie Williams. And then
we should say Layne with a Y.
Yes. So it's LayneMarie Williams, WILLIAMS. Same thing for Instagram. That's also my handle. Women of the Now, who you should follow, really, is womenofthenow.chai on Instagram. And then we also have a Facebook business page, Women of the Now. And I have a website, LayneMarieWilliams.com. Women of the Now also has a website. So yeah, just feel free to Google me, Google Women's Film Festival, Women of the Now, all that good stuff for
Okay, you're in all the places. Thank you for doing this, and thank you so much for your candor.
Yeah, thank you so much for asking great questions. It's always interesting to see, like the trend in some of the questions, and then the ones that like totally catch you by surprise. So thank you.
It didn't seem like you were caught flat-footed with any of it. You did great.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was a lot of fun. I really appreciate it.
You've been listening to The Other 50%, a herstory of Hollywood. I'm Julie Harris Walker. I'd like to thank Layne Marie Williams for sharing her story. And special thanks to Jay Rowe, Danny Rosner, and Allison McQuaid for the music. Please find us on your favorite podcast provider and leave a review. And of course on our website, theother50%.com, all spelled out in letters, for added features, bios of our guests, pictures, the merch. You can also follow us on all the social media platforms. And also go subscribe to Exit 38 and the Kiss My Age show.